Podcast New York.
What's up, Dueling Decades? This is Wax. Peace to all you guys, and thanks for having me on the show. Will it be the 90s or the 80s? Beanie Babies or Crack Babies? Will it be Nirvana or Madonna? Maybe Britney, maybe Whitney. Do you like new metal or new wave? Dave Grohl or Super Dave? I don't know. But now the battle begins. Dueling Decades. Let's see who wins.
Dueling Decades.
All right, Drew Zakmin, you pick up a big 2 points heading into the final round, which is the news round. That means you're in the lead, and you get to decide if you want to defer or if you want to go first.
I'll go first here. All right, so for news, I have May 12th, 1976. While sitting alone in his jail cell, Nelson Mandela began writing his life memoir. I had to. I'm sorry.
I know. I was gonna say it if you didn't.
You guys already got O.J. Simpson. You brought O.J. Simpson back up too. So
yeah, he's been up a lot.
Yeah, no Bill Clinton here either. So May 11th, 1976. There was an amendment to the Federal Election Campaign Act. And basically what wound up happening was there's a case, Buckley versus Vallejo. It was a landmark decision of the U.S. Supreme Court on campaign finance. Basically, a majority of justices held that limits on election spending in the federal election campaign of 1971 are unconstitutional. So now the court, they recognize that reporting and disclosure requirements infringe on First Amendment rights. But the court also held that the government has a vital interest in providing the electorate with information as to where political campaign money comes from and how it's spent by the candidate in order to aid the voters in evaluating those who seek federal office. Also, it has a vital interest in allowing voters to place each candidate in the political spectrum more precisely than is often possible solely on the basis of party labels and campaign speeches. So, so basically it was, just kind of like full disclosure requirements. It would help deter actual corruption and avoid the appearance of corruption by exposing large contributions and expenditures, kind of bring that to the light for the public to see. And it works really well now. And I feel like our government and our leaders are not corrupt. I feel like they're stand-up individuals. And I feel very strongly, as a matter of fact, that the amendment to the Federal Election Campaign Act on May 11th, 1976 really helped shape our country and really, help get it to where it is today. So that's what I have.
All right, Mancrush, what did you bring for the news round?
Oh, man. All right, so let's go May 11th, 1995. Same day as Drew there.
His first year in office.
No, here we go, though. We're going to have one of the most nefarious releases of all time here. And I wanted Mike Ranger to do this one. He was going to call in and deliver this one. Gaming is Mike Ranger's thing. I'm sure he's been waiting. I think he even told me before he's been waiting for this one, and he would have given it due diligence. I don't think his wife was going to let him on tonight, so he could not make it to do the call-in. So I'm going to give this one a try. I'm going to see if I can give it some justice here, because I'm not a gamer. Sometimes I wish I grew up and I was a gamer, but I was just never really into consoles after the Nintendo. So it is what it is. It just wasn't my bag. All right. But let's begin with a quote from the CEO of Sega of America from February of 1995, just to give this a little context. All right. And here's the quote. It says, "The magic price point is $300. If your product costs more than $300, then your market is very, very limited." Okay. That's his quote. All right. Initially, the North American release of this product, it was supposed to happen on what Sega was going to call Saturn Day. And that was going to be Saturday, September 2nd, 1995. And that was slated to be 1 week prior to the upstart Sony PlayStation that was being released on September 9th of 1995. And a little interesting bit here, Mike Ranger gave me this one. he was explaining to me how Sony initially went to Sega to work together on some hardware, and Sega of Japan said, hell fucking no. Like, what do these dudes know about making games? They make TVs. So then they said no, and then they doubled down on just killing the PlayStation before it got started. So Tom Kalinski, the same guy that I gave you that quote from before of Sega of America, he announced at E3, which is the Electronic Entertainment Expo that they had on May 11th, 1995, that instead of waiting until Saturn Day, which is the worst name ever, they were just going to go ahead and start selling the Sega Saturn right now. As soon as he was done talking, we're selling it. It's coming out. And then he followed that up with a statement by just dropping the lowest introductory price they can come out with $399.99, which is the equivalent of $700 in 2021. And like, bro, like, I kind of remember you just saying in February that $300 was that, like, wasn't that the top off? Like, huh? Anyway, so he says that several hours later, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this before, but it's epic. If you've never seen it, go look it up on YouTube. Steve Race, he's the head of PlayStation America. He walks up to the podium at E3. It's like their time to talk. He goes up there and just goes, make believe I'm walk up. $299. Drops the fucking mic, leaves the building. That's it. He's $100 less. And since like Sega launched early without any real notice, there were only 30,000 units that had been sent to select retailers, right? And even though they had this 4-month head start, they created a hardware shortage by themselves. But like, people just couldn't even get their hands on these Sega Saturns because there's only 30,000 of them for those 4 months. And since they basically sold those 30,000 units to Toys R Us, it pissed off all the other retailers. So in spite of that, there were several big toy store chains like KB Toys, for instance, that refused to even carry the Sega Saturn when it was back in stock. Once the hardware shortage was over. And on top of that, all the game companies that were prepared for a September release, they didn't have any games to sell for the Sega Saturn. So if you were one of the lucky people or not so lucky to buy it in May or over that summer, you didn't even have any games to play for the Sega Saturn. So anyhow, Kalinski, he was out of Sega by the next year. By like next summer, he was ousted. By that summer, actually by the summer of 97, Sega was down to a 12% market share. Now, if you remember, it was like the Sega Genesis and NES for years leading up to this. So they had a decent market share. Now they had 12% of that US market gone. And they're like, what systems are they making these days? And where is freaking Sony? Like, where's Sony at now? And where are these guys? It wasn't all that bad for them. The Saturn still kicked ass in Japan, is what Mike told me. He said the system was actually very good, but it was just a flaming dumpster fire in the United States because 2 moronic decisions: early release, and it was too expensive. So I give you the release of the Sega Saturn and everything that unfolded after that.
Wow. Yeah. That's
Talk about legs, Drew
Oh,
Zakmin.
totally.
Or lack thereof.
Yeah. All right. So for my news selection, I actually found it in the Sports People section of the Courier Journal from Louisville, Kentucky, May 13th, 1988. And where the headline reads, "You can't give these things away." Heavyweight champion Mike Tyson says he's had nothing but bad luck and accidents with his $183,000 Bentley convertible. And the car has brought more bad luck to 2 Port Authority of New York policemen who he tried to give it to. Tyson and his wife, actress Robin Givens, were involved in a minor accident Sunday morning near the Manhattan entrance of the Holland Tunnel. When the 2 officers, whose names have not been released, offered to give Tyson some assistance, Tyson told them, "You guys can just take the car and keep it." The officers then drove the car to a private garage in New Jersey, where it stayed until the commander of the Holland Tunnel Police Detail heard about the incident. Detectives then took the car and returned it to the company that handles Mike Tyson's business interests. I got real problems with this behavior, said the Port Authority police superintendent. The main difficulty is that we had to ask the officers. We shouldn't have to do that about the situation. The information should be first and faster. So they didn't tell anybody about this. They just took the Bentley that Mike Tyson gave them and said, hey, we'll just park it in the garage and drive it around whenever we want. So, and the other half of the story is that week, Mike Tyson was also in the news for another reason, because later in the week, he decides, you know what? I've had it with living in the United States. I'm going to move to Monaco. So, yeah, that's going to be a thing now to avoid all the taxes and everything. So Mike Tyson gets into a car accident, gives away his Bentley, and decides, yeah, I'm leaving the country. I'm going to go live in Monaco. So that's what I got for news offering. It's a wild week in New York for Mike Tyson.
Man, if I had a nickel for every time I moved to Monaco.
All right, let's throw it down to Mike Henneberger for the ruling on the news round.
Oh man, this one's a little easier for me, I think. I've got more. Yeah, I need to start seeing a weekly therapist instead of monthly, because I got triggered on that Sega Saturn thing. I grew up super poor and never had. I think we had a Nintendo and eventually got a Super Nintendo, but not like when it came out. But I had a rich cousin who had every game system when it came out, including the Sega Saturn. And he wasn't always like we didn't always get to like play with it if he was playing with it. Yeah, that triggered me, man. Sorry, can't go with Sega Saturn.
Well, that's good, because I shit all over the Sega Saturn.
Yeah,
it's
true.
the story for the Sony PlayStation.
Yeah, and the same thing for Bentleys, man. He never let me drive his Bentley. No, but you know,
give it to you either.
Solving campaign finance reform, you know, just like Mandela solved racism. I gotta go with that one.
All right.
Oh wow! All right, Drew. That means you run away with this game, picking up another 2 points.
Love it.
Good Lord, what was that? 5 points? What do you have?
That was a beatdown. I think this is a record.
5 points.
So,
Oh, wow.
Mike, thank you, sir.
Sure.
Good Lord.
Good job.
That's because Mike tried to keep it interesting in round 3. And like, dude, thank you so much for coming on. Tell everybody like where they can find the book and like everything about it.
Oh yeah, well thanks for having me, man. This is a lot of fun. I've enjoyed listening, and I'm glad Steph brought this up, so thanks to her too for introducing us.
It was a weird thing, and she threw out a name. I was like, yeah, we like getting like different people on. It's cool getting different perspectives, and you know, I got to listen to the book and I love the book. So
Well, yeah, and I mean, as you can tell from the book too, there's no shortage of pop culture references in it. So I mean, any useful information I once had has been replaced by pop culture knowledge. So, and I mean, that's, you know, one of the reasons I love listening. Now, maybe I'll watch too on YouTube. But I love learning about pop culture from people who actually, you know, care about it and get excited about it and do research about it. So yeah, thanks for having me. Hopefully I could come back sometime.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, if people want to look for the book, Rock Bottom at the Renaissance, rockbottombook.com. You can find links to buy it wherever. There's paperbacks on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, ebooks, anywhere you can get an ebook. And the audiobook is only on Audible and Apple Books. So I wish there was a way that I could put like just the audiobook format out. Like you just can't put it out as like MP3s, you know, and have people just listen to it that way. And get the like same, you know, like where it'll save your spot like in an audiobook. Yeah, if I could do that, I would just pass it out to people. Yeah, it's on Audible and Apple Books, and like I said, 50% of the royalties on all of that since the book came out in June, and as long as it will be out, I'll be donating that to mental health charities, and as of now, also artist and tour crew relief funds, since those folks have been out of work for a year, and it's one of the last industries to get saved. Yeah, I mean, it's helping people out too. Yeah, that's about it. If you go to rockbottombook.com too, you'll find like videos. You know, I started a video series called Rock Bottom Book Club, where I interviewed AJ Perdomo from the band The Dangerous Summer about the book. I've done interviews with Tyler Posey about the book, and so it's kind of a video series. And I have a podcast called, my production company is called Burger Media. It's a burger joint on all social media, but you can find the A Burger Joint podcast, where I put all those interviews and my interviews with bands and stuff. Yeah, I mean, you can find me on social media, Mikey Lee Rock everywhere, or A Burger Joint.
Dude, I can't believe that nobody's done what you did, and now I think it's going to become a thing. I mean, people have the playlists and do the stories with it.
Oh yeah.
Well, now Spotify offers that as a feature, that you can do that for podcasting by inserting songs in a playlist, and they do that now. Like, you know how the Spotify makes for you those year-end playlists. Yeah. One of the ones that they made for me this year was like a bunch of my favorite songs, and then people giving the backstory behind it, all in a playlist.
Oh, cool. Yeah, Spotify's done that a lot with like the commentary for albums. Yeah. But yeah, like if you're someone who prefers like a physical book, the paperback copy has QR codes in front, so you can download a playlist on Apple Music or Spotify with every song that's mentioned in the book, not just the ones that are chapter songs. Because I mean, a lot of people might listen to it who, you know, see emo in the subtitle, or see pop punk bands that they know, or punk bands that they know in the book. But then I also mention like Dion and the Belmonts, or I also mention Conway Twitty, you know? And so I've been told by a lot of people that they've, you know, discovered new artists from it, which I love, because I've worked in music journalism for over a decade. And, you know, that's been a big motivation in my life, is just introducing people to music. So yeah, I mean, I unfortunately don't think enough people have listened to it or bought it for it to be an idea that catches on. Hopefully that'll change soon.
People just need to, like, once they do, man, it's not so much like you guys are talking about like the commentary and everything else. It's your perspective of these songs and how they felt to you, and that changes from person to person. Yeah, but I think at the same time, people will relate with a lot of the stuff that you say in that.
Yeah, and you know what I tell people too is that like it's not a unique story. You know, it's a depressed guy, you know, dealing with heartbreak. The way I tell the story is unique, but people tell me all the time how much they related to it, because it's not unique. It's everybody's. Everybody, I think, has dealt with heartbreak, you know, like even Slash, from what we learned today.
At the ripe young age of 9.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a story that people will relate to, and it's even if you don't, good, because it's the experience I went through, and it sucks. So good if you can't relate to it, but it's still a fun ride because of like the music in it and the way that it pops up throughout the story.
Right. And like, there's a lot of things, like when you're talking about staying up all night and having your head just, you know, all these thoughts and you can't go to sleep. Like, I think even get away from the darker stuff, like even the lighter stuff, you listen to it, and I think a lot of people will be like, oh shit, that happens to me like all the time. I mean, you know, I'm not the only one this happens to. Like, I can't shut this thing off, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's something I like that never really comes up in conversations about it is kind of the whole thing that kind of motivated the story was my my like being brainwashed by pop culture about the romanticism of New York City. You know, that's kind of what is the foundation of that book. It's why I'm so depressed, and it's why I'm so let down by what I expected to find when I moved to New York. And it's all because of movies and music and books that gave me this idea of what New York was supposed to be.
Did you watch Death Wish at all, or? You probably should have started.
A little before my time, but I mean, I still seen it, but yeah, it was a new New York when I moved here. But yeah, and so I think that's something also that people can like relate to is the pop culture side of it. You know, I referenced the Ted Mosby, you know, side of my personality, and you know, Say Anything with John Cusack, and just being this, you know, optimist and hopeless romantic. And I mean, I think a lot of us I feel like people who, you know, listen to this show who are interested in pop culture have that connection to it. We let it, you know, influence the way we think about things. And this book is very much about like how that can go wrong, I guess.
Kind of like a manufactured expectation, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's done really well.
Thanks,
done
man.
super well. Like if you have an Audible account, just go on there and get it. Use one of your credits, or I don't know. I've had an Audible account for so long, I don't even know if you can buy stuff on there. Just use a credit, whatever. It's worth it.
You know what? And if you don't have an Audible account, if you go to rockbottombook.com, the link, one of the links I have on there is for first-time Audible users to get a 30-day free trial, and you get a free credit with that free trial that you can use on my book, and cancel it after you hear it. I don't care, you know. And if you want to screw with Bezos, that's it. Just
use
go
special code Vagisil for 30 days.
For an extra 5%, use the code DICK.
Yeah, I mean, you're already going to Amazon to buy your Vagisil, so get while you're there.
You know this is going to backfire on all of us. We're
all just going to get the ads.
Throw it in the cart.
No, so you can cancel your Audible account before the 30-day trial, and you won't pay anything. You can just use your credit to listen to my book. Like that's, like I said, all I care is that people hear it, because I think it is that good, you know, from, you know, everybody that contributed to make it that good. And I think that's going to turn into this becoming a TV show, or this, you know, them telling their friends who are going to buy the copies, whatever. I don't care. I just want people to hear it because I worked so fucking hard on it, man. It's definitely I've never worked harder on anything in my life. And I've never been more proud of anything. And I mean, okay, so maybe my daughter, but I didn't have to work hard for her, but I am proud so far with her. I mean, she's so advanced. Like she's grabbing the bottle already. It's, she gets that from me. So I'm excited about her, of course, but yeah, I worked really hard on this thing. So I just want people to hear it.
And one of the cool things, I can't remember if I heard you say this or you said it in the book, like you put the book down for a while, right? Like you part of it and like stepped away. And then
I mean, I started it in 2011. And so it's a memoir of kind of like my first like 4 years in New York. So yeah, there was a period of like 4 or 5 years that I, you know, set it aside because I was still dealing with that depression and that anxiety, and I didn't want to put it out and have people see who I really was, you know. So that's why I said earlier that like it took me getting mentally healthier, it took me doing the work of that, of, you know, finding the right meds, talking to a therapist, meditating, making it important to me to fix that, or to, you know, learn how to manage it. And that's the only reason it's out. I hid it for so long because I was still that person and I didn't want people to know. But now I'm not anymore. So
there's also that stigma too, right? You know, it's I feel like it's gotten a little bit better regarding mental health. I feel like this past year in particular, I think it has kind of shown a light on things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, hopefully, you know, it's awesome that you're talking about it, because I feel like this is a topic I can also talk about for hours on end. But you know, it's good that more people are talking about. So hopefully, in maybe the near future, who knows, but sooner rather than later, you know, getting people help and, you know, just kind of like normalizing that conversation will be an actual thing. So
yeah, and I mean that's another reason I put it out, because like there are plenty of things in that book that I could be ashamed of or I could be embarrassed by, but at this point I just feel so good about how far I've come from that I'm not embarrassed by it anymore. And like I had to deal with the possibility of like my family reading it and my, you know, my in-laws reading it, who I, you know, consider some of, like, I consider them closer to me than a lot of my own family. And, you know, I'm like, my wife's family reading that book was scary to me. And I don't know if they have or not, but they're like in the other room right now. Yeah, because of the baby.
Vagisil.
But I mean, I wanted people who are at that, because like there's like I mentioned like 3 or 4 different stories in the book where I almost died from not purposeful suicide, but like being reckless with drugs and alcohol because I didn't care.
Dude, that chapter, by the way, that was the worst night of sleep I had. Like,
sorry.
I can't remember. It was like the 3rd or 4th one.
Yeah.
Where it's really dark, and I was like, and I have like these headphone things. It's like eye wrap that I wear.
Oh yeah.
And my wife was tossing and turning, and I'm like, fuck, can she hear this? She's probably because that's a dark chapter. Because you really dig deep there.
If I were a better writer, I would have put those, like chapter 2 is like the Chelsea Hotel chapter, which is like a prostitute experience, and the chapter 3 is like a in case of suicide note is what I call it, because I thought I was going to die that night. And so it's practically like letter to my family and all that stuff. So it gets really dark, and I'm always afraid that people are going to stop there and not, because it doesn't get better, but it gets less dark after that. It's so but yeah, I'm kind of always afraid that people won't get past that part. But yeah, no, that's the thing, is that like I wanted people to know that like it doesn't matter what kind of stupid shit you did or how bad you fucked up, like you can get past it, and you can't let that destroy you, because it will kill you literally if you let it. And it almost killed me a couple times, and thank God it didn't. But yeah, so I just wanted people to you know, those who need to hear that, to be able to hear that.
Dude, thanks. We could probably talk about this forever, but it's
and it's Mental Health Awareness Month right now too, so
yeah,
it's
so
good time to talk about it.
You were in the military too. I don't want to poo-poo it too much. Like, you were in the military, I was in the Marine Corps, so like,
okay,
I know, you know, you probably know a lot of people too that go through a lot of mental health things just from that.
Yeah,
and it doesn't really translate because it's not the same thing, but I think even those guys would still enjoy it, like, you know, or still get something out of it.
Yeah, you know, I actually got a message yesterday from this. So when I was in the Army, I was a combat documentarian, which is like combat camera photography, video stuff, and I never got deployed before I got out on medically discharged before I got deployed. But you go to training, you go to like Army or like military film school with people from different branches, and there was this girl who was a Marine. She's out now. I don't know. Are you guys always Marines?
Apparently.
Yeah, I had a huge crush on her then. But she messaged me yesterday, and we stayed friends on Facebook. That she heard the audiobook, and she was telling me how much she loved it, because she's like going to school now. And either just got her master's or she's going to like work with in psychology. But she was a Marine, and she, you know, has dealt with that stuff and has known plenty of people who've dealt with that stuff. And yeah, I mean, aside from what we all know about the military and PTSD and people coming back from combat with PTSD, there's a huge percentage of suicides and suicide attempts in the military from people who've never been deployed. The Department of Defense puts out a suicide event report every year. So the fact that they have to do that says a lot about suicide in the military. But some of the stats that they have on that are whether or not these people have been deployed, whether or not they've seen combat when they were deployed. And I mean, I would say, it's been a while since I looked at it, but there's just the percentage of people who have never been deployed who have attempted suicide the last time I looked at it was at least 30%.
Holy
That's insane.
And that was the thing for me too. I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder and anxiety disorder when I was in the Army, and it was just from being treated shitty and joining so I would feel a sense of purpose and then not feeling a sense of purpose, because I joined to get deployed and go, do, documentation and filming and stuff. And of course I know that's not all I would be doing, but then I just sat in a barracks in Maryland for 9 months and cleaned floors and painted walls and saw people almost kill themselves in front of me and had to clean their blood from carpets and mattresses. And, so I dealt with my share of traumatic experiences right outside of Baltimore, so yeah, there's a lot going on there too.
See, this is why I think it's important to get different guests that aren't all the same. There's different stories to tell, and I think it hits everybody a different way. So, dude, again, thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
come back whenever, man.
Yeah,
and you're not that far away, dude.
And
I know you said in your book you hate people, but
again, I wrote that a long time ago. Yeah, and that's the thing too, is I didn't want to change it. I wanted,
right,
despite how I feel now about a lot of those things, I didn't really change that much of it because I wanted people to know, where my head was when I wrote it. Yeah, it's but who knows? I feel like every now and then before COVID, I would have to go to Middletown for work stuff. But so yeah, if I head up there sometime, I'll let you know.
Yeah, dude, for real, hook me up. Hook me up. Hook it up. That's why I'm glad we're not live now. But thanks again, Mark. Yeah. I'm sure you're looking at the clock, but go ahead. You can do your closeout.
All right. Well, thanks again to Mike Henneberger for being an excellent judge tonight, and congratulations to Drew Zakmin for picking up the win. But unfortunately, we're going to have to end this episode right here. But don't worry, if you've missed an episode, you can always go over to duelingdecades.com. That's your one-stop shop for everything for the show. The audio version of the show is there. The YouTube version of the show is there. You can also subscribe on your platform of choice. Now, you can find all the links to all of our social medias right in the episode notes from this episode. So until next time, Duelers, we're going to bid you a peace, love, light, and a joy. Have a grateful week, everyone.